In the winter of 1933, a broke dancer stood in a rented room in New York City and was told flatly that he was already somewhere else. He had not seen his family in 12 years. They were on a small island in the Caribbean. He wanted to be with them for Christmas, and he had no money, no ticket, and no plan for getting either. He went to his teacher, an old man in Harlem, and said what everybody says, "I want to go home." The old man did not encourage him. He did not tell him to try harder, or to save, or to believe. He said, "You are in Barbados." The dancer said, "I am not. I am here, in this room, with nothing." And the old man said it again, and then refused to discuss it any further, and told him to go home and sleep in Barbados. Not to sleep and dream about Barbados, to sleep in it. To lie down in a New York bed and occupy the island is a fact that had already occurred. A few weeks later, he was on a ship. And the strangest detail of the whole thing is not that he sailed. It is how he sailed, which I will come back to at the end, because it is the part that tells you what this really is. That dancer's name was Neville Goddard, and what the old man handed him that night is the thing we are going to take apart today. It has a modern name now. People call it time collapse. And almost everybody who tries it does one specific thing wrong, which is why almost nobody gets what he got. Here is what we are going to walk through. First, the waiting room, and why the gap between wanting something and having it is not a length of time at all. Then, how to name the thing correctly, as a fact rather than a wish. Then, how to find the one scene that does the work, which is never the scene you think it is. Then, how to speak about it during the day without undoing it every afternoon. Then, the part almost everyone refuses, which is dropping the how. Then the 2 minutes at the end of your day where the whole thing actually gets installed. And finally, how to hold your ground in the strange, quiet stretch after you have done it correctly and nothing has moved yet. 7 stages. That last one is where most people lose it, so stay to the end. Stage 1, the waiting room. There is a woman somewhere right now who has been manifesting the same thing for 3 years. She knows the terminology. She has the board. She has moved the board twice. She has a folder of screenshots on her phone of the house, the number, the life. And every single day for 3 years, she has done something that guarantees it stays exactly where it is, which is that she has checked whether it has arrived yet. That is the whole disease, and it is so quiet you can practice it for a decade without noticing. Checking is a confession. You do not check on things you already have. I want to be fair here, because the other camp does the same thing wearing a different coat. The man with the plan checks too. He measures, he adjusts, he starts over in January. Both of them are living in the interval, which is the only place a thing cannot arrive. Because here is what an interval actually is. It is not a stretch of clock time between you and the outcome. It is a state you are holding. The state is called not yet. And a mind holding not yet will arrange the world to keep proving it, because that is what a mind does with every state you hand it. It goes and finds the evidence. Think about what you actually do all day when you want something you do not have. You rehearse the absence. You picture the bank balance and feel the shortage. You picture the person and feel the distance. You picture the body and feel the difference between it and the one in the mirror. Every one of those is a small, vivid, emotionally convincing performance of not having it. And the deeper part of you, the part that takes what it is given without argument, receives that performance the way it receives everything, as a description of what is so. So the person who has been at it 3 years is not failing at manifestation. They are extremely good at it. They have manifested with total consistency the experience of they have gotten exactly what they impressed. This is why the ordinary approach to speeding things up does not work. You cannot want harder. Wanting is the signal of absence. Adding intensity to absence just makes the absence louder. The people who tell you to hold the vision with more emotion are, without meaning to, telling you to feel the gap more strongly. The old teachers understood this in a way the modern versions have lost. They did not talk about shortening the wait. They talked about the wait not existing. Time in this work is not a road you travel. It is a state you are occupying, and states can be changed the way you change a room. You do not walk to a room across 100 miles of hallway. You step into it. So the method is not a way to make the thing come faster. Read that twice. It is a way to stop standing in the interval, and the interval is the only thing that was ever holding it. I want to separate this from the version you may have run into, because the phrase has been picked up and turned into something it is not. There is a whole strand of this online that treats collapsing time as a kind of pressure you apply. Demand it, command the timeline, set a deadline and push. That is just wanting with a stopwatch attached, and it fails for the same reason wanting fails, which is that a deadline is an interval with a fence around it. You cannot force your way out of a state. You can only leave it, and leaving is easier than forcing, which is why so few people believe it. There is a strange resistance in us to anything that does not cause struggle. If a thing is achieved by quietly changing what you are holding, some part of us feels it has not been paid for and goes looking for something hard to do instead. Notice that impulse when it shows up tonight. It is the interval defending itself, which means the whole practice comes down to one instruction, and it is a strange one. Stop trying to get it, start remembering it. Everything else we do today is mechanics for that one move. Stage 2, name the fact, not the wish. Before you can remember something, it has to be specific enough to have happened. This is where most attempts die before they begin, and it is worth being blunt about it. More money is not a thing that can occur. Nothing in the world can happen that would satisfy the sentence, "I want more money." It has no shape, no moment, no edge. There is no morning you could wake up and say, "That happened." Napoleon Hill spent 20 years around men who had built enormous things, and the finding he kept coming back to was almost boring in how simple it was. They knew in exact terms what they were after, not the general direction. The thing itself, in a form you could write down and hand to a stranger. He was not being fussy about goal setting. He had noticed something about how the mind works. A vague instruction is not an instruction. It is a mood, and you cannot install a mood as a memory. So here is the test, and I want you to actually run it on whatever you are carrying. Could a newspaper report it? Not the feeling of it, the event. Could somebody who does not know you and does not care about you write one sentence describing what occurred? If they could not, you do not have a fact yet. You have an atmosphere. I want more money is an atmosphere. My income doubled and the first month of it landed in April is a fact. I want to feel better about myself is an atmosphere. I stood in front of a room of 40 people and spoke without my hands shaking is a fact. I want a better relationship is an atmosphere. We moved into the flat on the corner and I woke up on a Saturday with nowhere to be is a fact. Notice what happened in every one of those. The moment the thing became specific, it also became dated. It got a when. And the moment it has a when, you can put the when behind you. That is the actual instruction. Take the thing, sharpen it until a stranger could report it, and then write it once in the past tense, as though it is already on the record. Not it will happen, not it is happening, it happened. There is a reason this works, and it is not mystical. Your deeper mind treats the past as settled. It does not debate what has already occurred, because there is nothing to debate. Argue with a wish, and you are having a normal conversation. Argue with a memory, and you sound insane. So when you hand that part of you a completed fact, it does not push back. It does what it always does with a settled fact. It starts behaving consistently with it, whereas a wish handed over gets processed as what it is, a statement that this is not the case. So write the sentence, one line, past tense. Somewhere you will see it tomorrow. And I will save you a mistake I made for years. Do not write a paragraph. Do not write 9 of them. One sentence, one thing, because the second thing halves the first. And by the 5th, you are not collapsing anything, you are browsing. There is one more trap in the naming, and it catches good people. So let me flag it now. Do not write a fact whose content is another person's decision. He called me and apologized is not a fact you can hold because it puts the whole weight of the thing on a mind you have no jurisdiction over, and some part of you knows that, and that part will keep objecting all night. Every one of the 4 teachers drew the same boundary in different language. You work on your own state. You do not reach across and operate somebody else. Write the outcome instead of the mechanism. Not he called and apologized, but it was settled between us and I stopped carrying it. Not she agreed to the price, but the deal closed at the number I wanted. The person may well turn out to be the door. That is fine. They are simply not the instruction. Same rule, cleaner test. If the sentence needs a named human being to behave in a particular way for it to be true, rewrite it until it only needs your life to be a particular way. If you want a page that already has the slot for it, I put one together. It is a single sheet, free, called the Daily Auto-Suggestion Sheet, and it exists because I got tired of writing this on the backs of envelopes and losing them. There is a line at the top for the one fact in your own handwriting, and a short routine either side of the day so the sentence gets impressed instead of just stored. It comes with 3 short emails that show you how to actually run it, because a sheet used wrong is just stationary. It is the first link in the description. Go and get it, and then come back, because the next stage is the one that does the heavy lifting. Stage 3, find the scene after. Now we go back to that room in New York, because what the old man told Neville to do was extremely specific, and the specificity is the whole thing. He did not say, picture yourself getting a ticket. He did not say, imagine the money arriving. Those are scenes about the wanting. They still contain the problem inside them. He told him to sleep in Barbados, meaning, find the moment on the far side of the event, when the event is so finished that it is no longer interesting, and go and lie down inside that. Not the arrival, not the ship. The ordinary hour afterward when you are simply there. Neville used to describe what he did. He lay in his bed in New York and he did not imagine the journey. He put himself in the bedroom of his family's house on the island. He felt the different air. He heard what you hear on that island at night, which is not what you hear in a rented room in New York. And he did it night after night until the New York bed felt like the thing that was not real. He was not visualizing. This is the distinction almost everybody misses. Visualizing is looking at a picture. You are outside it, watching, the way you watch a film about somebody else. And the whole time you are watching, you are quietly confirming that you are here and it is over there. What he was doing was occupying. Inside the scene, looking out through his own eyes with a body in it. If you can see your own face, you are still in the audience. Get in the chair. And the scene has to imply the whole thing without describing it. This is the elegant part. You do not need to imagine every step. You need one small moment that could only be true if the entire thing had already happened. If the fact is that your income doubled, the scene is not a number on a screen. It is the evening you booked something without doing the arithmetic first. It is the small, boring, physical instant that would be impossible in your current life. If the fact is the flat on the corner, the scene is not the keys. It is the second Saturday when the boxes are gone and you are looking for a bowl in the wrong cupboard. If the fact is the room of 40 people, the scene is not the applause. It is walking to your car afterwards, phone in your hand, deciding who to call first. Small, ordinary, after. Those 3 words are the specification. And then you make it sensory, because the deeper mind does not run on argument. It runs on sensation. What is under your feet? What the light is doing? What one other person says to you in that moment in their own voice in a sentence they would actually use. Give it something to touch and it stops treating the scene as a proposal. One more rule, and this is the one that keeps it honest. The scene must be a scene you would still be in 10 minutes later. Not a firework, a fact. If your imagined moment is all peak, all triumph, all cameras, you have built a fantasy, and fantasies are pleasant precisely because everyone involved knows they are not real. The scene that works is almost disappointingly calm. That calm is the tell. When the thing has genuinely moved into the past for you, it stops being thrilling. That is not the practice failing. That is the practice succeeding. Stage 4, say it as history. You can do the scene perfectly at 11 at night and undo the whole thing by 9 the next morning, and most people do, in a single sentence, without hearing themselves. Somebody asks how it is going and you say, yeah, still waiting on that. There it is, 4 words, and you have just filed a correction. Whatever you installed in the dark, you have now overwritten in daylight with the version you actually believe. And the deeper mind takes the newer instruction because it always takes the newer instruction. Florence Scovel Shinn worked out of a New York parlor in the 1920s and 30s, and she was ruthless about this. She did not treat speech as commentary on your life. She treated it as construction. In her view, the sentence you say about your situation is not a report of the situation, it is an order about it, and the order gets carried out whether or not you meant it as one. She would take somebody who was doing everything else right and find that all day long they were saying things like, "I never have enough at the end of the month," or "Nothing ever works out for me first time." And she would stop them there because the practice was not failing at night, it was being canceled at lunch. The instruction is not to stop talking about your life. That is not possible, and it would make you strange at parties. The instruction is to stop describing the interval. There is a middle path here, and I want to be exact about it, because this is where people go wrong in the other direction and start lying badly. You do not walk around announcing to your colleagues that your income has doubled when your bank says otherwise. That is not faith, that is a performance, and part of you knows it, and the part of you that knows it is the part you were trying to convince. What you do is refuse to voice the absence. When the topic comes up, you either say nothing or you speak from the settled version quietly, in a way that costs you nothing socially. Instead of, "I am still waiting to hear back," you say, "It is handled." Instead of, "I cannot afford that right now," you say, "I am not spending on that this month." Both are true. Only one of them is a description of lack. Instead of, "I am trying to lose weight," you say nothing at all and eat the way the person who already did it eats. And where it counts most, when you are alone, you speak the fact out loud in the past tense, exactly as you wrote it, not as an affirmation you are trying to believe, as a line you are recalling. Which brings me to a man who did this so relentlessly and so publicly that people mistook it for arrogance for the rest of his life. In 1963, a 21-year-old fighter recorded an album. He had not won the heavyweight title. He was not the favorite. Sonny Liston was considered close to unbeatable, and most of the sports press treated the young man as a loud novelty. The album was called "I Am the Greatest." In February of 1964, he beat Liston, and he was right. Years later, Muhammad Ali explained the mechanism himself, and he explained it better than most teachers of this material ever have. "I am the greatest," he said, and then added the important half. "I said that even before I knew I was." He said he figured that if he said it enough, he would convince the world. Read that carefully, because there is a trick in it. He was not saying it to convince the world. The world was the last thing to come around. He was saying it in front of the world because saying it in front of the world made it impossible to quietly take it back at 3 p.m. when he did not feel like it. He had removed the escape route from his own speech. Every day he said the finished thing, and every day the not yet version had one less place to live. You do not need cameras for this. You need one sentence in the past tense that you refuse to contradict out loud. Guard it for a month, and you will be astonished at how much of your day was previously spent quietly reporting the opposite. Stage 5, drop the how. Now the stage almost nobody will do, and the one that actually collapses the time. You have to give up the route. Every person I have ever watched stall on this does the same thing. They get the fact, they build the scene, they hold the language, and then they lie there at midnight running logistics. Okay, but how? It would have to come through the job, or the sale, or him calling. And within about 90 seconds, they have talked themselves back into the interval, because every route they can think of is a route they have already tried, and it did not work. Of course it did not. You are trying to reach a state you have never occupied, using only the paths visible from the state you are standing in. If those paths worked, you would already be there. Notice what happened to the dancer in that room. Nobody told him how. He had no money and no prospects, and the old man did not hand him a plan, or a saving strategy, or an introduction. The instruction contained no method whatsoever. Sleep in Barbados. That is it. And what arrived was not on any list he could have made. A letter came from his brother, out of nowhere, with money in it and a passage on the last ship sailing before Christmas. He could have sat in that room for a year, drawing up plans, and that particular door would never have appeared on the paper because it did not belong to him. It belonged to somebody else who had his own reasons, on his own morning, thousands of miles away. Hill wrote a great deal about planning, and people misread him constantly, so let me put it as plainly as he meant it. The aim is fixed and the plan is disposable. You are expected to act. You are not expected to know the way in advance. And if you refuse to move until you can see the whole route, you will not move because you never can. So here is the practical form of dropping the how. You keep the end, you surrender the middle, and you agree in advance that the thing will probably arrive through a door you would not have listed. That agreement matters more than it sounds, because if you have not made it, you will not recognize the door when it opens. You will be watching the 4 exits you approved, and something will happen at a 5th one, and you will call it a distraction. There is a small discipline that goes with this, and it is the only one I insist on. When something does present itself, move on it the same day, not because the universe is testing you. Because the deeper mind reads action as belief and hesitation as doubt, and there is no faster way to cancel a good night's work than to be handed the opening you asked for and go quiet on it. Watch what happens to your body when you genuinely let go of the route. There is a specific relief that comes, and the relief is diagnostic. If it feels like giving up, you have dropped the aim instead of the plan. Do it again. The aim stays. Only the map goes in the bin. And while we are here, if any of this is landing, subscribe, not for me. Because everything on this channel is one law taken apart from a different angle. And this only really compounds when you have seen 4 or 5 of the angles. Stage 6, the last 2 minutes. Everything so far has been preparation. This is where the thing gets installed, and it takes about the length of a phone call you do not want to have. There is a window every night, just before you go under, where the ordinary reasoning mind loosens its grip and stops correcting things. You know the state. You are not awake enough to plan and not asleep enough to dream. Most people spend it scrolling, which means most people spend the single most impressionable stretch of their day handing themselves other people's lives. Neville taught that this window is not a nice extra. He taught it is the door. Whatever you are quietly holding as you cross it goes in without inspection, because the part of you that would have raised an objection has already clocked off. So the last thing you do every night is this. You go into the scene, the small, ordinary, after-it-happened moment you built in stage 3. You get inside it, behind your own eyes, and you stay there for as long as it takes to stop being an idea and start being a place. For most people, that is between 60 seconds and 3 minutes. Then you fall asleep in it, the way that Dancer fell asleep in Barbados while his body was in a rented room in Manhattan. That is what living in the end actually means. Not thinking about the end, ending your day inside it. And there is a version of this for the nights when your mind will not build anything, when you are too tired or too flat to construct a scene. Neville gave people a phrase for exactly those nights, and it is close to the simplest instruction in this entire body of work. Isn't it wonderful? That is the whole thing. You lie there, you do not specify, you do not picture, you simply repeat those 3 words in the state of a person for whom something extraordinarily good has just been settled, and you let the mood carry you under. He told of a man who was ruined financially, who had nothing left to picture and no plan worth imagining, and who simply fell asleep night after night in the feeling of those 3 words, as though the news had already come, and it came. I know how thin that sounds written down. It works because it is not a description. It has no content for your reasoning mind to attack. There is nothing in it to be wrong about. It is pure state, which is the only thing that ever gets impressed anyway. 3 rules about this window, and then we are done with technique. Do not check your phone after it. Whatever you install can be overwritten in 9 seconds by somebody else's life, and it usually is. Do not use the window to ask. Asking is the interval wearing pajamas. You are not petitioning at that hour. You are remembering. And if you wake at 3 in the morning, which most of us do at some point in a bad month, go straight back into the same scene. Do not review the day. Do not do sums in the dark. That hour has the same softness as the one before sleep, and it is either going to install something or install something else. And if you leave it unattended, it will fill itself with whatever you are most afraid of. Put the scene there. Fall back asleep in it. There is a morning half to this too, and it costs even less. Before your feet are on the floor, before the phone, spend 30 seconds back in the same moment, not to top it up. To make sure the first state you carry into the day is the finished one rather than the one the alarm handed you. Night installs it. Morning protects it. That is the entire routine, and it is shorter than brushing your teeth. If you do nothing else from today, do that. 2 minutes, one scene, every night until you notice you have stopped needing to remind yourself. It is the smallest hinge on the biggest door in this material. Stage 7, hold the past tense through the gap. Now, the part I promised, and the reason most people never see this work, you will do everything correctly for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and nothing will happen. Nothing visible. No sign, no coincidence, no letter. The bank will say what it said. The phone will not ring. And you will be standing in your kitchen on a Tuesday, having done the thing properly every night with absolutely no evidence. And that is the exact moment the whole practice is decided. Because there is a gap. There has always been a gap. The old teachers all mention it in different words, and none of them make it sound as uncomfortable as it actually is. And in that gap, you will be handed one specific temptation, which is to check, to go and look, to measure whether it is working. And the moment you measure, you have stepped back into the interval, because measuring is what you do to a thing that has not happened. So let me tell you what to do instead, because being told to just have faith is useless advice. First, treat the gap as expected rather than as information. It is not feedback, it is the shape of the process. A thing that has moved into your past has not yet moved into your calendar, and there is a stretch where those two disagree. Nothing is wrong during that stretch. It is simply the stretch. Second, do not start over. This is where I lose most people. Around day 18, they decide the scene was not quite right, and they build a new one. And a week later, they refine it again. That is not persistence. That is restarting. And a thing you restart 3 times has been going for a week each time. Pick the scene and then be boring about it. Third, and this is the practical one, keep your eyes on the wrong things. The first evidence almost never looks like the outcome. It looks like a door. Somebody you had not thought about in a year gets in touch. A conversation goes somewhere it should not have gone. A small amount of money turns up from an administrative direction, and it is not the amount, it is the fact that the direction existed at all. That is the thing people miss and then complain about later. They are watching for the mountain, so they walk straight past the path. And when the first small thing does arrive, do not do what everybody does, which is explain it. There is an almost automatic reflex to say, well, that was just the tax people, or that was just a coincidence. And in one sentence, you take the single piece of evidence you have been waiting for and hand it back. Write it down instead. Date it. Do not argue about the mechanism. Just record that something moved. Because that is the crossing. Up to that point, you have been holding the finished fact deliberately, on purpose, by an act of will. After the first thing lands, you stop holding it. It starts holding itself. And a state you no longer have to maintain is a state you have actually entered. Now, let me finish the story, because I said the strange part was how he sailed. When Neville got the letter with the passage in it, he went back to the old man, delighted, and told him he had a ticket, and the old man refused the news. He said, "Who told you that you are going to Barbados? And who told you that you went 3rd class? You went 1st class." And then he shut the door in his face. On the ship, a passenger canceled. Neville was moved up. He crossed 1st class, which was the one detail he had never asked for and never imagined, because it had not occurred to him that he was allowed to. I think about that more than any other part of it. The old man was not correcting the destination. He was correcting how far into the past Neville had put it. A ticket you are holding is still a plan. A crossing you took is a memory. And the difference between those two sentences is the whole method. So here is where I will leave you tonight. Take the one thing, sharpen it until a stranger could report it. Write it once, in the past tense. Find the small ordinary moment just after it, get inside it, and fall asleep there. Refuse to describe the absence out loud. Give up the route. And when the gap comes, and it will, be boring about it. You are not trying to make it happen sooner. You are trying to stop standing in the only place it cannot reach you. One last thing, and then I will let you go. I know that everything I have just described lives or dies on one crossing, which is the first time you see something move that you did not cause by ordinary means. Before that, all of this is a theory you are being generous about. After it, it is not a belief anymore, it is something you know, and nobody can talk you out of it. That crossing is the only reason I built the 14-day money magnet. It is small on purpose. 14 days, one short email a day, and one small thing to do, aimed at $100 arriving that you did not work a normal job for. Not a fortune. 100, because 100 is small enough to actually come and specific enough that you cannot argue it away afterwards. It is paid, and it is cheap. And if you run the 14 days properly and the 100 does not come, you write to me and I return every penny of it. That is not a sales line. It is just the only fair arrangement when I am the one telling you it works. It is the second link down in the description. And if you take nothing else from today, take the sentence the old man in Harlem refused to soften. You are not going. You went.